I still remember the sound of the train that day. Loud, steady, and cold. Just like my parents' voices when they left me behind. We were standing on the platform waiting for the next train. I thought we were just going on a family trip like we used to do once in a while. I was wearing my favorite purple hoodie, and I had a tiny backpack with snacks, a book, and my headphones. I was 13. I still thought my parents were supposed to protect me. My mom, Denise, looked at my dad and laughed. She's always bragging about how grown up she is. Let's see how she finds her way home, she said. I thought she was joking. I laughed a little too, even though I didn't really get it. Then my dad, Martin, smiled and said, "We'll be right back, Emily. Stay here and don't move." They walked toward the parking lot. I waited. I didn't even check the time. I just stood there, thinking they were getting something from the car. I watched families around me, a dad holding his daughter's hand, a mom picking crumbs off her toddler's shirt. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. The station got busier, then quieter. Still no sign of them. I called my mom's phone. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. My dad's phone turned off. I sat on a bench hugging my backpack. I told myself they were just messing with me, that they'd come running back, laughing and saying, "You should have seen your face." But hours passed. The sun started to go down. The station lights flickered on. I remember watching a man mop the floor and thinking, why hasn't anyone asked me if I'm okay? I walked to the main office and asked the man behind the glass if I could use the phone. He looked at me like I was a lost dog. "I'm trying to call my parents," I said. My voice cracked. He handed me the phone. I dialed again. Still nothing. I sat in the corner near the vending machines. I ate a crushed granola bar from my bag and cried silently. I didn't want anyone to see me cry. That night, I curled up on the hard plastic bench with my backpack as a pillow. My hoodie wasn't warm enough. I kept my eyes on the entrance, still hoping I'd see my dad's jacket, my mom's long brown hair, hear them calling my name. But no one came. I didn't sleep much. Just small moments of rest in between the loudspeaker announcements and the trains screeching in and out. By morning, I was hungry and tired and scared. I used the bathroom sink to wash my face. I looked in the mirror. My eyes were swollen. I looked older than 13. I sat outside on the bench near the front of the station, watching people come and go. Some were in suits, rushing to work. Others looked like they had nowhere to go, just like me. A few people looked at me with soft eyes. No one asked anything. I kept waiting. Maybe they were testing me. Maybe this was all some big life lesson. But something in me started to crack. I remembered every time my parents said I was too sensitive. Every time they made me the punchline of their jokes. I thought about the time my mom laughed when I cried after she threw my birthday cake on the floor because I didn't clean my room fast enough. Suddenly it hit me. This wasn't a test. This wasn't a joke. They actually left me. That moment, that sharp, clear thought, changed everything. My chest felt hollow. I couldn't even cry anymore. I stood up, tightened the straps on my backpack, and walked away from the station. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew one thing. I wasn't going back home. The city looked bigger than I remembered. Every building seemed taller, every person faster. I was just a small 13-year-old with $5 left in my pocket and a backpack that was getting heavier by the hour. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked. By the time the sky turned orange, my legs ached. I stopped at a convenience store and used $2 to buy a bottle of water and a packet of crackers. The clerk looked at me funny, but didn't say anything. I sat on the curb outside and ate slowly, watching cars rush past like they had somewhere to be. Somewhere I didn't. Night came quickly. The streets were louder now, scarier. I kept thinking someone would stop me, ask where my parents were, or call the police. But no one did. I was invisible. When it got too dark to keep walking, I found a 24-hour diner and snuck into the bathroom. It was warm inside, and the light flickered above the mirror. I locked myself in a stall, sat on the toilet seat, and hugged my backpack to my chest. That was my bed for the night. I didn't really sleep, just rested my head and closed my eyes for a bit. Every time the door creaked or someone walked in, my heart jumped. By morning, my back hurt, my lips were dry, and I felt dirty. I washed my face in the sink again and used paper towels to wipe under my arms. I tried to make myself look normal. I sat outside the diner, hoping maybe someone would drop some change near me. Instead, a woman in her 60s stopped in front of me. She had kind eyes and a purple scarf around her neck. "You okay, honey?" she asked. I looked up, unsure of what to say. I wanted to lie. I wanted to be tough. But instead, my voice cracked. "I lost my family." Her eyes softened and she sat beside me on the curb. "What's your name?" "Emma," I said quickly. I didn't want to be Emily anymore. Emily was the girl they left behind. Emma was nobody. And nobody felt safer. She introduced herself as Teresa. She said she had grandkids around my age. She pulled a wrapped sandwich from her tote bag and handed it to me. "Here," she said. "You need food more than I do." I took it and mumbled, "Thank you." My hands shook as I unwrapped it. I hadn't eaten anything real in over a day. She watched me for a while. "You don't have to tell me what happened," she said. "But I know a place where kids like you can sleep. It's not perfect, but they'll feed you. You'll be safe." "Is it a police station?" I asked quickly. "No," she said gently. "It's a shelter, run by church volunteers. They don't ask too many questions." She reached into her purse and gave me a crumpled $20 bill. "There's a bus that goes from here to Millport. Take it. Ask the driver to drop you at the church shelter on Maple Avenue." I stared at the money. It felt heavy in my hand. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. Teresa smiled. "Because someone once helped me when I was young and scared. You'll understand one day." Before I could say anything else, she stood up, gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze, and walked away. That $20 bought me a bus ticket, a hot chocolate from a vending machine, and a bit of hope. On the bus ride to Millport, I looked out the window and whispered to myself, "You're not going back. Ever." I arrived just before sunset. The bus driver pointed to a small building with chipped paint and a crooked wooden cross out front. "That's your stop," he said. I walked slowly to the door, unsure if I was making a mistake. But my legs didn't stop moving. I knocked once. The door creaked open, and a woman in an apron smiled at me. She didn't ask questions. She just said, "Come in, sweetie. You look like you need rest." And for the first time in 2 days, I walked into a place that didn't make me feel scared. I didn't know what was waiting for me inside, but I knew it had to be better than what I left behind. They asked me for my full name when I got to the shelter. I paused. "Emma," I said. "Emma what?" the lady behind the desk asked gently. My mind raced. I didn't want them to know who I really was. What if they called my parents? What if they made me go back? My stomach turned at the thought. "Just Emma," I whispered. She looked at me for a moment like she knew there was more, but she didn't push. "All right, Emma," she said softly. "Let's get you a bed." The shelter smelled like old wood and soup. The walls were filled with hand-drawn pictures and Bible verses. Kids of different ages moved around in silence. Some stared at me. Most didn't. I guess new faces weren't that unusual. They gave me a small bed in a shared room with 3 other girls. I didn't talk. I didn't ask names. I just crawled under the blanket, turned to the wall, and closed my eyes. That night, I dreamed of the train station. In my dream, my mom stood at the platform, waving at me. But instead of her usual smile, her face was cold and empty. I woke up sweating, heart pounding, my pillow damp from tears. Over the next few days, I followed the rules. Woke up when the bell rang, ate whatever they served, helped clean the tables and fold laundry. I didn't talk much, but I watched everyone. There was a man named Carlos who worked there. He had a calm voice and always wore a navy sweater with holes in the elbows. He asked me again for my last name during breakfast one morning. "You know, in case we need to help you find your family," he said kindly. "My parents died in a fire," I replied without blinking. It was a lie. But it was easier than the truth. Carlos nodded slowly. I'm sorry to hear that. He didn't ask again. The truth was too heavy to carry. It was easier to bury it. In the following weeks, I helped out more. I swept the floor without being asked. I folded clothes tighter than the others. I even helped the little kids brush their hair and find their shoes. People started calling me Quiet Emma, and I liked that. I liked being useful, invisible, and untouchable. It made me feel safe. One afternoon, a woman named Miss Ruby brought art supplies to the shelter. She was plump and cheerful and had paint on her hands. She gave everyone paper and watercolors. I hadn't drawn anything in a long time, but that day I painted a tree with no leaves. Its branches stretched out like arms reaching for something that wasn't there. When Miss Ruby saw it, she placed her hand gently on my shoulder. "You've got a lot inside, don't you?" she said softly. I didn't answer, but her voice didn't scare me. That night I stayed up staring at the ceiling. For the first time, I realized I hadn't thought about going home in days. I hadn't imagined my mother's face or my father's laugh. They were fading, piece by piece, like old photos in the sun. The next morning, Carlos called me into his office. There was a folder on his desk and a gentle smile on his face. "A foster family is open to taking you in," he said. My chest tightened. "You don't have to say yes," he added quickly, "but it's a chance to live in a real home again." I looked down at my hands. They were small, but strong. I had survived sleeping in a diner bathroom. I had walked into a new life with nothing but a backpack and a lie. Now someone wanted to give me a home? I didn't say anything at first. Then I nodded. "Okay." Carlos smiled. "Her name is Grace. She's strict but kind. No kids of her own. You'll meet her tomorrow." Strict but kind. I could live with that. That night, I folded my clothes neatly into a plastic bag the shelter gave me. My heart beat fast, not from fear this time, but something else. Something new. Maybe, just maybe, this would be the beginning of becoming someone new. Grace didn't smile much when I met her. She wore a long gray coat and had short, neat hair that looked like she trimmed it herself. Her face was firm, but her eyes were soft. She looked like the kind of person who didn't waste time with extra words. But when she did speak, you'd want to listen. "Emma, right?" she asked, holding out her hand. I shook it. "Yes, ma'am." She nodded. "I'm not here to replace anyone, but I run a clean house, and I expect respect. You'll have your own room, you'll go to school, and you'll help out. Is that clear?" I nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She gave a small smile, just the corner of her mouth, and that was enough. Her home was small but warm. There were shelves full of books, a worn rug in the living room, and a kitchen that smelled like cinnamon and old wood. My room had a twin bed, a wooden desk, and a window that looked out over a quiet street. It was more than I'd had in months, maybe ever. That first night, I couldn't sleep, not because I was scared, but because I wasn't. I wasn't on a bench or in a shelter or hiding behind a lie. I was in a real bed, with clean sheets and a closed door. I felt safe. School was hard at first. I hadn't been in a classroom since before the train station. I didn't know what grade I was supposed to be in, and I didn't like people staring. Most of the kids ignored me, but some whispered when they thought I couldn't hear. "That's the foster girl. Do you think she was homeless? I heard she doesn't have parents." I kept my head down. I focused on my work. Grace checked my homework every night. She didn't praise me much, but when I brought home my first A, she made spaghetti and let me have a second slice of garlic bread. I knew that meant she was proud. One weekend, she asked me to help clean the attic. We pulled down dusty boxes filled with old letters, photos, and broken lamps. "Whose are these?" I asked. "Mine," she said, wiping her hands on her jeans. "From a long time ago, before I was alone." She didn't say more, and I didn't ask. But in that moment, I realized she understood loneliness in her own way. Over time, I stopped looking over my shoulder. I stopped expecting the phone to ring with bad news. I started using the library, staying late for science club, and tutoring kids who needed help in math. I still didn't tell anyone the truth. Not about the train station, not about my real name, Not about the parents who left me and never came back. But I didn't feel like I was lying anymore. I wasn't that girl. I was Emma Carter now. The name on my school ID, on my homework, on my future. Every year on my birthday, Grace gave me a small gift. Nothing big. A used novel, a scarf, a necklace made of tiny silver beads. She never asked how I liked to celebrate. She just left the gift on the table in the morning, and I'd quietly say thank you over breakfast. Then one day, a letter came. I recognized the handwriting right away. It was sharp and rushed, my mother's. It was addressed to Emily, not Emma. I froze in the doorway, the letter in my hand. My heart beat loud in my ears. I didn't open it. I didn't show Grace. I just slipped it into the back of my drawer under my socks. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The past wasn't gone. It knew where I lived, but I wasn't the girl it remembered. I was someone new now. Someone who had survived, who had built something from the pieces. I had a routine, a home, a future. I didn't need answers from people who had laughed while walking away from me. I tucked the letter away and got ready for school the next morning, because Emma Carter had a test to pass, and I planned to ace it. I was 23 the day everything cracked open again. It was a regular Thursday. The sky was cloudy and the bookstore smelled like dust and cinnamon, just the way I liked it. I had been working there for over a year, organizing shelves, helping customers, and drinking way too much tea behind the counter. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet, safe, mine. That evening, I closed up a little late. A couple had gotten into a long conversation about poetry, and I didn't have the heart to rush them out. When I finally locked the door, the street was nearly empty. The air felt heavier than usual. My phone buzzed in my jacket pocket. I ignored it at first. Probably a reminder or spam, but it kept buzzing, and buzzing, and buzzing. I pulled it out. My hand suddenly felt cold. 40 missed calls, all from the same unknown number. 40, not 4, not 14, 40. I stared at the screen like it was a ghost. Then came the voicemail notification. One new message. I shouldn't have listened. I should have deleted it and walked away. But my thumb moved on its own. Beep. Emily, it's Dad. I dropped the phone. My breath caught in my throat. I hadn't heard that voice in 10 years, not since the train station, not since he smiled and said, "We'll be right back." My legs felt weak. I sat down hard on the bottom step in front of the bookstore. My heart pounded so loud I couldn't hear the rest of the city. It was just me, the streetlight humming above me, and the sound of my father's voice replaying in my mind. "Emily, we've found you. Please call us." They used my real name, not Emma, not the name I had chosen and built my life on. Emily. How did they find me? Did someone recognize me? Did someone from the shelter talk? Did they follow a paper trail? Had they been looking all these years? I didn't know. I couldn't think. I picked up the phone again. My fingers hovered over the screen. Should I call back? Should I block the number? I didn't do either. Instead, I walked. I walked all the way home, past closed bakeries and flickering neon signs. I didn't notice the wind or the cars or the people rushing by. I just walked, clutching my phone like it might explode. When I got home, I locked the door, pulled the curtains, and sat on my bed in the dark. 40 missed calls. 10 years of silence. And now this. I opened the drawer beside my bed and pulled out the letter I had hidden years ago. The one addressed to Emily. My hands shook as I held it, just like they had the day it arrived. I had never opened it. I still didn't. I pressed it to my chest and closed my eyes. I thought about Teresa and the sandwich she gave me. I thought about the shelter, about Carlos and his calm voice. I thought about Grace and her quiet love, her rules, her steadiness. I thought about the first time I made my own money, the first time I felt proud of who I was. And then I thought about the train station, the cold bench, the hours alone, the moment I realized they weren't coming back. Now they had found me, but I wasn't that little girl anymore. I was 23. I had a job, a home, a life I had built without them. I looked down at the phone one more time. It buzzed again. Same number. The phone buzzed again in my hand. Same number. Same name I hadn't heard in a decade still echoing in my ears. Emily. I sat there in the dark, knees pulled to my chest, watching the screen light up, then fade. Light up, then fade. Again. And again. But I didn't answer. Instead, I placed the phone face down on the table. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain aside just enough to see the street below. Quiet. Peaceful. The same bookstore across the road. The same flickering street lamp humming outside. Everything looked the same. But nothing felt the same. For 10 years, I'd lived my life in layers. The first layer was survival. The second was silence. The third was growth. And now, this call was trying to peel everything back to the beginning. To the girl sitting at a train station bench, waiting for her parents to come back. I wasn't her anymore. I walked over to my desk drawer and took out the envelope. The one with my mother's handwriting. The one that had waited patiently under my socks for years. It felt like it was pulsing in my hand. I sat down slowly and opened it for the first time. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No photo, no return address. Just words. Emily, we don't know if this will reach you. We've tried everything. We've hired people. We've called shelters. Nothing. We thought you'd come home. We thought you'd figure it out and come back. But you didn't. And now we don't know how to fix it. I know what we did was wrong. I know we laughed when we shouldn't have. It was supposed to be a joke, a lesson, something you'd remember and laugh about later. We didn't know you wouldn't come back. We miss you. If you ever read this, please come home. Love, Mom. I stared at the paper for a long time. They thought it was a joke, a lesson. I folded the letter slowly and slid it back into the envelope. Then I opened the bottom drawer and placed it under everything. Old papers, journals, faded receipts, like I was burying it. Because that's what I needed to do. I wasn't angry, not anymore. I was just done. Done carrying that weight. Done wondering if it was my fault. Done hoping they'd say sorry in a way that mattered. I had spent 10 years learning how to live without them. How to build something steady. How to become someone I actually liked waking up as. Emma Carter. Not a perfect person, but a whole one. I walked back to the table and looked at my phone again. It lit up once more. Call number 41. I watched the name on the screen. Then I pressed the side button and turned it face down. I let it ring. I poured myself a cup of tea, opened my favorite book, curled up on the couch and pulled the blanket around me. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace.